We all know the hegemonic power of Poland nowadays, managing to reform their electoral monarchy into the first truly democratic regime during the 1700s, which, in the modern day, has allowed them to retain a truly gigantic Eastern European empire. During their early wars against Sweden and Russia, both would be completely humiliated time and time again, even managing to install a Polish puppet on the Russian throne, which led to the slow weakening of Russia from within. Collaborating with France against the Habsburgs gained them Silesia and Slovakia, putting Poland in the perfect position to take advantage of a declining Ottoman Empire, even reaching Constantinople and founding a new Byzantine Empire. In the modern day, Polish domination over Eastern Europe and the larger European Federation cannot be denied. Poland's space program has been world-leading ever since they landed on the moon with a group of space hussars, despite crazy conspiracy theorists saying that this image is photoshopped. By today, the Poles have set up the first moon colony, which, while a useless investment, is still badass as hell, getting Poland closer to their science victory. With all of this Polish success, it is unthinkable to think of a timeline where Poland failed. I mean, they literally invented industrialization and democracy. Removing them from any timeline will change everything. Yet today, we're going to try to do it. Do realize that I cannot be fully realistic in this video, simply because so much has changed from our timeline. But sit back and enjoy what if everything went terrible for Poland. Now of course, we could go back to way before Poland was founded, destroy them by some nomadic invasion or something, but that is boring. For an added challenge, let's start at the peak of Polish power during the 1600s. They controlled much of Eastern Europe, Russia was facing their times of troubles, and we can immediately add in a big change. Rather than Poland permanently puppeting Russia, the Russian nobles kicked the Poles back again, creating a rather large rival for the future. Sweden we must also change. While Poland was distracted by the Ottomans, the Swedes attempted an invasion. But, as you'll know, King Gustavus Adolphus fell off his horse early in the campaign, and without his military genius, and with internal troubles, the Poles managed to decisively defeat the Swedes. What I propose here is that Gustavus Adolphus survives, and thereby defeats the Poles, weakening their control over the Baltic. By this point, Poland's geographic location will become its greatest weakness. They are surrounded between all sorts of states willing to carve up their empire. Should any of them start a major war with Poland, the others will likely also pound to gain easy victories. I think it's most likely that Russia makes use of a major Cossack rebellion to weaken the Polish state. The eastern part of the empire would be devastated by Russia's invasion, but it gets worse. Sweden, now seeing their chance, invades as well, occupying most of the western half of the empire. Between these two invasions, the Commonwealth might lose up to 70% of its population, being majorly crippled. Still, nobody would like to see Swedish Poland become a reality, including Russia, giving way to a Polish revival as Russia and Sweden fight it out amongst themselves. Due to these conflicts, as well as help from other states, Poland bounces back. Yet, apart from the population losses, the Commonwealth would lose a huge chunk of their territory. From here, while territorially things would stabilize from Poland, they were no longer a great power. After Russia also defeated Sweden in a war, which wouldn't be able to keep up due to their small population, Russia's status as Eastern European hegemon is nearly secure. Here, we will start to exploit the Polish-Lithuanian system of electoral monarchy and power of the nobility. Rather than fine-tuning it towards the first true democracy, we will have the nobility start to take control over the state. We will ensure that the Libertum Veto, the clause where any noble could veto any proposal, remains in place, rather than being abolished in the 16th century. With this veto in place, you might imagine how easy it becomes for Russia and other foreign rivals to bribe a singular noble and completely paralyze the Polish state. Towards the final few decades of the Commonwealth, it has practically become a puppet to Russia, as nothing productive gets done. But hey, at least there is still a Poland, right? Well, not for long. As the Russians make use of the inevitable decline of the Ottomans, the Habsburgs and Russians begin to clash over who gets to take what. It looked like a Habsburg-Russian war was inevitable. To prevent this conflict, which wouldn't benefit Prussia, Prussia could very well suggest another course of action. Why not partition the Poles instead, satisfying both of the power-hungry great powers? And so it was. All three states began to seize Polish territories for themselves. This was the new Poland for a while, until a revolution would engulf France, which would almost certainly still occur during this time. Considering how weak Poland had become, there would be major fears for a Polish revolution aligning with France. To prevent this, another partition would weaken Poland. Almost certainly, such a humiliation would, ironically, spark the exact type of uprising the surrounding powers feared. By this point though, Poland would be too weak to resist anything, and a final partition would wipe the nation off the map. I'm sorry for the quick intermission, but by far most of you aren't subscribed. To keep up to date with all the latest releases, consider doing so. Thank you. By now, we are getting so deep into the scenario and so much has changed that I need to start being less realistic in my predictions. You might think me insane, but the French Revolution might just produce an ambitious and charismatic genius, making use of the now broken glass ceiling for the non-high nobility to take power over France and run rampant around Europe. Should such a man actually rise and reach Poland, it makes a lot of sense that he would use Polish nationalism and found a new Polish state. Of course though, this would only be temporary. France could never hold all of Europe, especially with an invasion of Britain out of the question. I would imagine that Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria would be the dominant powers in breaking down French hegemony again. The great powers then completely reshaped Europe in their image, and Russia would probably gain control over Poland in the process. To ease their rule, Poland might start with some autonomy, but this would soon be restricted again and replaced with attempts at Russification. For the next century, Poland would rally against their Russian overlords, but it would be futile. Repressions, uprisings, and deportations would be commonplace in Russian Poland. But a rising tide of nationalism could sweep over Europe during this time, which might give us our next superpower, Germany. With the creation of such a powerful state, undoubtedly an industrial superpower in the making, the balance of power in Europe would be broken. I cannot predict why the war would begin, though I would put my money on some damned foolish thing in the Balkan. But either way, a major war is likely to break out. Russia, while big, would very likely have fallen behind the other powers in terms of modernization, giving Germany the opportunity to absolutely dominate the early stages of such a war. A combination of military defeats, authoritarian leadership, and economic issues would cause the Russians to be the first great power to be defeated. Germany would make use of this opportunity to create a new, independent Poland, though in reality it was a mere German puppet. Luckily though, Germany would fail to dominate Western Europe. The British Navy would launch a devastating blockade of Germany, starving them of key war materials. Their Western enemies would slowly push the German alliance to the brink, as one by one they collapse until Germany too is defeated. With Germany gone, Poland finally has a shot to rebound. Their nationalism and gain of rich, industrial territory in the West puts them in a position to temporarily dominate Eastern Europe, as Germany is crippled by defeat and Russia by a terrible civil war. My best guess would be that Russia goes a radical new direction, probably communist, who would start to radically industrialize the new state. While Poland would temporarily be safe, trouble would soon start to rise again. Because I doubt that Germany could cope with this loss in the World War, as they too turned to extremism, but likely a more nationalistic kind. Now, Poland is caught between a rock and a hard place. With France and Britain still paralyzed by the horrors of a world war, Germany starts to rise again and sets their sights on Poland. At the same time, the communist Russians would probably seek a restoration of Russian power. Despite ideological differences, I could see the two powers work together to partition Eastern Europe between themselves. But here, they wouldn't stop. I could imagine Germany again making a play for European domination, but the same arguments apply as with the last war. Britain's navy would prevent Germany from ever defeating them permanently, while the Germans promptly do something stupid like invade Russia and declare war on America for no good reason. So, once again, the Germans would be completely defeated by their opponents, but while you might think that this could lead to a newly independent Poland, I highly doubt it. The capitalist West and the communist Russians would promptly start a falling out towards the end of this conflict. Rather than restore Poland, Russia probably strips a lot of territories from the east while compensating them with new, formerly German, Western territories. By now, Poland would once again become a puppet to Moscow, and considering atomic bombs are likely to be invented, and the Russians would undoubtedly manage to get a hold of them as well, I would imagine that this new border is permanent, as we end our scenario with a technically independent Poland, which in reality is under the firm grasp of the communists in Russia. Quite a more unappealing prospect to what happened to Poland in our own timeline, right? But sadly, this is where I'll end this alternate history. I know, I was a bit vaguer than usual, and I very much understand if you think that this video has been one of my most unrealistic ones, but I just covered about 400 years of history. At some point, you have to let realism go in favor of a more interesting scenario. For now though, this is the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, and consider leaving a like and a comment, as well as subscribing. If you've enjoyed this video, click on the video on top to watch another in this series. If you've already seen it, then I'm sure the bottom video is great too. Once again, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.